Hi guys, I'm Diaria Timora. This is my personal channel, and today I wanna chill with you to tell you about how it was to attend an elite university in London and the sort of zeitgeist of it, the political lens that it put on the world, on my friendships at the time. Spoiler alert, not great. But also what it meant for me in terms of how it turned me into a socialist. And that wasn't the university in itself, nor the social life in it, which were actually counterproductive. That's kind of the point of the video. But what really did change my views or give me any sort of views was the material aspect of it. So the material conditions that I was experiencing at that time. So first of all, how did this go? Because I want this video to be useful to maybe young people in places that are widely considered sort of backwards and like conservative and traditional, such as, I don't know, if you're a young person in Texas maybe, or another like southern state, and you are going to big university in New York, or if you're a southern European who is going to attend university in the UK like I did. I'd love you to listen to this, and I'd love you to basically not let yourself be fooled by people who think they're better than you just because they have this, idea of how deplorable, if you will, the place that you come from is, and they project all of that on you, and they, basically just want to feel better about themselves. That was a big spoiler, but with that, basically, why did I go to King's College London? So, I love literature and film, and I lived in a household crazy enough that even though there wasn't really that much money, they thought it would be okay for me to like just go and get this degree, which, let's just say, doesn't usually turn into a lot of money, get into that for that, which I am, and I will probably be in forever. And I got accepted by King's, which is an amazing uni, and that I will say, King's is a great uni. I have amazing memories from it. Despite it all, I absolutely adored the classes. It's a gorgeous, amazing place. I just like, overall it was great. But that doesn't mean the politics around the course material, how it's framed, and especially the social context amongst the students, it basically wasn't great. And definitely wasn't on what I would consider the left. It was the current left, it was the new left. It was nothing to do with what a left that would have captivated me at the time. And basically, to get back to the chronology, I got accepted by King's, and I just felt like I couldn't say no. I had been modeling for a year and really didn't like it at all. It was really lonely and really unstable and not intellectual at all. I felt like I had no voice in the workplace, which, darling, you're in for a big surprise. It's just capitalism, not just modeling. But anyway, that already had turned pretty much kind of made me sense, something that I had been already kind of, I felt, suspecting for a long time, truly for my whole life, that something was fundamentally wrong on the one hand, and on the other hand that nothing much was happening. So I already went in there with this sense of like, something's off, something is off. This sense of something wrong, something more sinister that I could quite grasp, and a certain stasis about it as well. So I get into Kings, and at the time I remember like just being like super romantic, super like, you know, hung up in my like irrationality, in my sort of daydreams and like melodrama probably to an extent. And I remember like, you know, trying to talk about like boys with my classmates, which I mean, I was 19, like, yeah, that's what you're gonna do at 19, isn't it? If you're like somewhat of a normal person, not that I've ever been super normal, but like I was normal in that sense, you know? And the reaction I remember was just like, for starters, it was just like, oh, she's talking about boys like that. That's so stupid. Like, why would someone do that? And like, in the beginning, I just like, I guess I was just bored. Like, I didn't understand why nobody wanted to like spill the tea with me. I was just like, well, like, what's the problem? I didn't understand like why it seemed to be so problematic. And then I started my classes, and basically let's just say I didn't love all of them. Like, some of them I was absolutely like obsessed with. I remember studying the Spanish poet Salinas, Lorca. Absolutely love them. That was like probably one of my favorites, and there were certainly many others. I remember like discovering fields that I absolutely like adored, and I was just like, I like every time I felt like I had found like a total sort of gem, and like I got to like dissect it and like further discover it, and like know every little tiny little bit of it, like through my essays, because I could like research it, and I just loved that so much. But I didn't love that everything seemed to move around what I at the time thought of as politics. Like, I didn't necessarily think of other stuff as politics in my life, but I did think of those issues as politics. So that would have been probably gender, race, geographical location. So was it like global north, global south, east, west, etc. And immediately my instinct reaction was to be really turned off by that. Like, I remember we studied Edward Said, and I was not really having it. Like, I was interested in going to class because nerd, but like this idea of like East and West are fundamentally different, and we will never quite understand each other. I mean, first of all, later on I found out why I was turned off by it, but immediately I was a little annoyed, and just suspicious. That was like my first reaction. And I remember like, you know, I'm gonna try to go chronologically. Basically, I started getting close to this group of girls, and like, I wanna say, again, like, for starters, hashtag not all. So like I said, I'm discussing a zeitgeist here. I'm talking about a general sort of environment and, you know, scene, but not necessarily like every person. Like, there were great people in this group, there were great people around. Like, I'm not saying at all everyone was in the, like, I wouldn't deem everyone to be what I'm gonna criticize here. But that being said, some of these people, not great. Basically, I remember talking to one of them who was really into feminism. I've seen her not long ago post a photo with a Florence Given book, which does not surprise me in the least. Like, if you look Florence Given up, you will see that she is the like epitome, like the idea you would have when you think of a stereotypical like hashtag dump him, men are essentially inherently awful, we are all like inherently racist and we need to check our privilege. This is the person you would think of as literally like, I cannot believe she's real and not just like a made up stereotype. It's quite wild, really. And I haven't looked into her for a minute, but like I remember like when I saw her content, it was just like, wow, like that is almost unbelievable that's so stereotypical. And yet real. But basically this girl, I remember she was really into feminism, and like her whole thing was around like women, coincidentally always in a relationship. We literally couldn't be alone. Interesting. And oh, by the way, if some of you guys are like, oh, she holds a grudge, yeah, I'm like that. I am like that. I hold grudges, sorry. And basically I remember having this conversation with her and telling her like, well, like I have never heard about feminism before. Like I was 19 and that's when I heard about it for the first time ever. Like before, I remember I thought it was something from lesbian women. Like that's all I knew. And like this was my first encounter with feminism. Someone who was basically like telling me the whole dump him scenario, the whole like you're fundamentally a victim and will never be anything else, but also you need to be a badass, and like if you are like a sort of more Lana Del Rey-esque woman, then you're not really welcome here, sweetie. And I remember telling her like, yeah, I mean, of course, like I think women and men are equal. Like I never even had a doubt about that. Like I never even thought about it as like a question. And I said, but it's just like feminism, I just don't see something about my gender being sort of like the core or central sort of thing about me, about like my beliefs or like my academic work or like creative work or whatever. I just remember saying like, I just don't understand like why my gender would be such a central thing. And now I like, in hindsight, now I know, like again, I know where that was coming from and I know where that was going. I feel like I just didn't have the pieces to put together, but again, I'll get there later. And so with this girl, we were like a whole group basically, and I remember like at the time, like when you're so young, sometimes it's really hard to like call stuff out, because you're like, you doubt yourself so much. I certainly did, and it's not like it's harder to identify situations for what they are, and so I don't know, I just thought like, and also because you're trying to figure out what's normal, right? But basically I remember like this obsession in this friend group with colonial areas of the world, like what the countries that had been like colonized, the peoples that had been colonized versus like the colonizers, and how a lot of their thought in general was based around that, to a point where I felt like I needed to like seem more of a victim. Like to that point, I remember basically being like, thinking like, oh well, maybe because I've grown up in the Canary Islands and they were colonized by Spain, then that will make me more acceptable to like my friends. Or I remember like, well, if some guy hurt me more, then I would be more of like someone they would regard like on a sort of like higher level, right? Just absurd. And anyway, I definitely did tell them about my like boy stuff, whatever. And I remember their reaction basically being like, suddenly I'm into this conversation. Suddenly I feel like I need to respond and like tell you about like my thoughts and like try to like sort out your life and help you out and be there for you. Not in a way to like discuss boys or like talk about like, you know, love in any romantic form, but to psychologize it, right? And basically that meant immediately telling me like, oh, he's playing games with you, like he's awful, I hate him. I remember literally this moment of like showing them a photo and then being like, oh, gross, he's so Spanish. She's just like, yeah, wow, you guys are like so progressive. Also from literal British women, like, thank you. Because my country's doing so well, you know, like certainly we need to be insulted on top of that. Just, yeah. And yeah, basically, you know, they were just like almost waiting for that and like suspicious that someone in either of my countries, so like Spain or Italy, would be misogynistic, would be playing games. I mean, they probably would expect they're playing games from any man, you know what I mean? Like, honestly. That was their entire mindset. And yeah, basically, suddenly I saw that like when I could be framed as the victim, I could get attention and I could be more well liked and I could enter the framework of their like mindset, their thinking, their ideology, if you will, or lack thereof, should I say. Anyway, so at one point, and this anecdote I need to tell because it's endlessly bad. Basically, one of them, she had broken up with this guy, and a year later was still hurt about it, which, sure, I mean, it's me, like, I get that. Why not 10 years later, you know, that makes sense to me. It didn't make sense to her, though. So she needed to make it about her being over him. And I remember, like, this moment of them making a comment, like her and someone else in the group, and basically saying, well, it's been a year since he broke up with me. I'm gonna celebrate. I'm gonna like do a 1-year anniversary party. And I remember like I barely could like hold my facial expressions. I was like, and I remember like them just like looking at me, like waiting on that comment from me. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna give you guys that. And I shut up. I said something really mild, like, yeah, sure, I mean, I don't know. And basically, like, I don't remember exactly to what extent I expressed myself. I do know what I thought, which was like, these people are absolutely ridiculous. Like, this is so pathetic. You are absolutely not over him. And you're basically doing this to, like, basically bash men. Like, this is completely sort of like essentialist feminism, which is like women versus men are all the same, dump him. That's the gist, that's the discourse. And so yeah, that was like that feeling though, that tension that I felt in that moment of them like waiting for me to say something, is because they knew that I like basically called bullshit on day one. And little by little they would like try to like shut me down, and like I kind of did, and I regret that so much. Like I feel like I stood my ground a lot for the given the circumstances. But even then, like I wish I had done that more, and I had more trust in my instinct, which I did eventually, but like took me a little bit of a long time. I remember another instance very specifically where I was at this like pub with them and basically made a very stupid comment, but like I basically said like, well, this guy that I like I'm actually in a good mood because like today I went on his girlfriend's profile and like mine is so much better and I look so much better, something along those lines. Their response was basically nailing me to the cross, and they told me like, I cannot believe you would say that about another woman. And they were like, we have already like so much against us, why would you add to that? What if that girl was one of us? You're so nice to us. What if she was one of us? Then what? It's just jarring to hear you speaking this way. And I just think, there were so many things you could have told me. First of all, if I could talk to myself, I would be like, oh babe, buckle up. Wait for a few years. If you think this girl's ugly and or whatever, like uglier than you and lesser than you in whatever way, and she's beating you, you're in for a big surprise. This is not how things work at all. It's not about an Instagram feed or whatever. It's not even about looks. It's not even about intelligence or talent or anything like that. Or it's not even about being a good person. It's a totally rational part of life. But you wouldn't have said that on my part at the time, because my belief wrong was that if you are like the hottest, the most successful, the whatever best at whatever thing, then you will quote unquote win, which very stupid. And that's why I was really struggling with reality, because I was like, why is that not actually playing out? Like, I don't understand. What, like, I thought this would happen, then it doesn't correspond. Weird. But also these girls, I think, had the wrong idea, because to them it was also a rationalizing, a psychologizing of private personal life, basically saying if he's not treating you well, dump him, whatever. You should find it so easy to do that. You should find it so easy to throw a party because you're happy he left you, because like he wasn't worthy of being with you. Why would you be sad? Why would you not be able to get over it? And he's like, no, it doesn't work like that. It's precisely the irrational part of life, your private life, your personal life. That's where irrationality lies for the most part, or where it should lie for the most part, if anywhere, I think. And both of us, in our twisted ways, we're trying to rationalize it. Only at least I didn't go around thinking I was holier than thou or I was better. They did though. So that was the vibe. The thing is, simultaneously, me and a lot of us, to be honest, like most of us, I mean, young girls in London, like, even if you are clearly, like, just to even be there, you do have to be from, like, a sort of professional managerial class background, and certainly be aiming for it yourself. But certainly coming from a Southern European country, it does kind of, like, make you downwardly mobile to then basically move to the UK, right? And it definitely was the case for me. And so I was really struggling with housing, and here's where it got interesting for me, because I was like, I cannot believe my family is paying this insane amount of money for this ridiculous accommodation. Like, I remember, like, first year I was at a charity accommodation for the University of London, and it was basically falling apart. Like, when I say falling apart, like, the heating system was, I mean, wartime. Like, wartime. The bed, I mean, tiny, just, the room, tiny, the toilets, that's the greatest part, isn't it? They were basically like 4 toilets for an entire floor of girls. Let's just say on the weekend you didn't wanna go anywhere near it. Let's just put it that way. And then second year, this was really like a huge time for me in terms of, really noticing, okay, something is just off. This cannot be fucking normal. Like, I started flat hunting. Yeah. First of all, I learned what an agency was. I learned how it worked to even get a flat for a few months, a year. You basically had to put in this insane offer. It was like a game. You had to, like, you guys know, like most people will know, like you have to basically rush in, put an offer slightly higher than the one they're giving you for starters, and then you're basically competing with other potential tenants, right? And I remember just the feeling of utter powerlessness, feeling cut adrift, feeling honestly like an idiot. Like an idiot. Feeling guilty towards my family as well. Just putting these insanely high offers for homes I hated. Hated. I was terrified of living in any of those. Like, and also I was terrified of living in the outskirts even, because like you come from literally a totally different country, and for me it wasn't even mainland Spain. Like, I came from the Canary Islands, like, I mean, not came from, but like I was living, my parents were living in the Canary Islands at that time, and that's where I had been living, and that's where I went home to. And like, I basically came from Northern Africa, you know what I mean? Like, it was really far away, and like you land in London randomly, and I was sheltered enough, and like, wealthy enough, and not wealthy, but you know what I mean, wealthy enough that I felt kind of terrified of everything. And like, I was also 19, 20. And so just seeing that, not only did I absolutely hate everywhere, and they all seemed so, like, basically falling apart, like so old, just so like almost unsafe, the flats, and that added to the price. I mean, I couldn't understand why I was the only one crying and getting completely desperate every day, because like the other girls, like a lot of them were wealthier than me. Like, they came from wealthier backgrounds, wealthier countries. I remember, I'm gonna give you guys a for instance, like this girl, she was nice. She was paying like around £400 per week for a room. This would be 2017. I mean, I never paid that, but like, just to give you an idea, like, these people were privileged, and I honestly, like, couldn't believe they weren't shocked. I was just like, what? Like, I don't understand. Like, what would make this seem normal to you? Like, why are we not doing something about it? Like, this is not okay. And not only that, but they were grateful. They were like, oh my god, I'm so excited about this flat. We have to thank the landlord. I was like, thank the landlord? Are you kidding me? I hate that person. Like, whoever they are, this is terrifying to me. I'm scared of living in the home of someone who would do such a thing, who would ask me for this amount of money for this shit. Like, ridiculous. I couldn't believe it. I just felt like, am I eating crazy pills here? Like, I didn't understand, like, why were we normalizing such a situation? Little did I know. Anyway, so we get towards like more of the end of the degree. I get like I freak out over and over and over and over again because you had to change homes constantly. Like, how many times did I change homes in London? Don't even remember. Like, probably like 5 times in 4 years, but I also did go to Italy in that, so that was like 6 times in 4 years, maybe 7. I don't even remember. It was basically like it went on for months, never even for a year, like never for more than 6 months actually, because the summer you didn't spend there. I mean, unless you could afford to. And you know, it was just like just very clear to me that something was off. Like, not that really cemented the idea that like, yeah, something's very sinister here. Like, this cannot be normal, right? At this point, yeah, I'm sharing my room with a literal rat. I remember like thinking, okay, I'm going to bed now and I'm gonna stay in bed. I'm gonna make sure I have everything I need. I'm gonna make sure I've done everything, because if I stand up any later than this, then I'm scared that the rat is gonna be out. And that was like my going to bed at night, you know what I mean? Like, not what I would describe as a relaxing experience. But anyway, I loved uni. I was increasingly frustrated by, yeah, this tendency to like focus on extremely identitarian politics. Like, I remember, this was like from the beginning, to be honest, but like I remember them treating Marxism or like Freud as like a priori outdated, reactionary, you know, just like boring, whatever, just, you know, just basically not something to be taken all that seriously. And I remember whenever we got to like queer theory, which by the way took me, I kid you not, months to even understand what the word queer was, let alone Judith Butler, like just broke my brain. Not gonna lie about that. And you know, just, yeah, just very focused on this idea of the new stuff is cool, the like postmodern stuff is you know, go for it. The other stuff though, the old left, it's a no-go. Enlightenment, this was, I remember, this another moment I remember vividly. I remember making a comment, also quite an ignorant comment in a way, because like I had these hunches, I had these like instincts that again I wish I'd only listened to, but I had these instincts without knowing exactly what they meant. But basically, you know, I remember saying, oh my god, I love the Enlightenment. And one of these girls, my friends, I remember she like turned like stiff. She was like, I hate the Enlightenment. I was like, okay, sorry. And like, I wish it was only this day, but that was the vibe throughout. And yeah, and again, like I wouldn't understand where this whole thing was coming from until much later. And you know, basically like these went together with comments such as like, so who do you think is prettier, Bella Hadid or Gigi Hadid? And then like I remember at some point I said Gigi, and I remember like the suspicion there, like the looks, like I just think you have a very Western idea of beauty. Just like, guys, like, I mean, you know, like, what do you even say to that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, when you turn that into a way to, like, be suspicious about someone and resent them, I mean, no wonder I ended up resenting them. Keeping it real. Basically, yeah, get to the end of it. I remember with the dissertation's themes, everyone doing it about something, yeah, like basically postmodern. I didn't, and I remember just feeling so frustrated because I was like, why why is everyone still on this shit? Like, what is this? I don't get it. And I basically wanted to do it on lost futures and, you know, the role of basically naturalizing the path that has been taken, the idea that it is an absolute versus the idea that there could be many different possibilities and opportunities, and, you know, yeah, basically the idea that there are infinite possibilities and different potential futures out there, and, you know, what this sense of regret as well would kind of mean, how that was portrayed in art, in terms of, you know, Calvino, Medem, these sort of authors in literature and film. And I love that, and you know, I just wonder, hey, could anybody at a like top class university have told me maybe to look at, I don't know, Mark Fisher, you know, or I don't know, the end of history? But no, they told me to look into Deleuze. I mean, I just, like, again, go for the postmodern author, you know, the other guys. Yeah, this whole thing of, like, how, you know, that stasis that you feel, and that, like, those lost opportunities, that cancellation of the future, all of that stuff. No, it's not like it's directly related to, you know, the early 90s and the move into, you know, postmodernism, and basically, you know, this end of history where class takes, it gets set up to the background, gets put in the background, and, you know, basically loses its central role in the left and, like, in political life in general, and that implies a loss of antagonism. No, none of that. Just go for the loose and, like, think about, I don't know, I honestly, like, I went through it, picked a couple of quotes, I couldn't even, like, grasp fully, like, what it was about. I don't even remember, like, that's the level. But I do know where all of that lies, and it's within that postmodern sort of academic arena that I just am not a fan of. Let's put it that way. Anyway, that sort of ended with more sort of, like, personal moments that were like that projection and that judgment and moralism, and, you know, basically being on the left because you want to feel better about yourself and you want to be, you know, either the most oppressed, or you want to find who is the most oppressed and just, you know, be there for them. Check your privilege and stuff like that. But anyway, at this point, I just was, like, looking for an answer because I didn't understand. I was like, so I'm really struggling with housing on the one hand, and when I voice this, people are telling me that we should be grateful, they're telling me to chill, they're telling me, oh, but you're already so privileged, they're telling me, oh, well, I mean, it's fine if you have to, like, get home alone at night, or, like, if you live in, like, a weird area or whatever, because, I mean, you are a white woman. It's not like something's gonna happen to you. They're not gonna pick you. I mean, come on, you're a white woman, like, you're gonna be fine. Literally, I was like, what are you even talking about? And the response, though, when I brought up men, was like, no, that's awful. You're never gonna break free from that. They're gonna be oppressing you forever. You're a woman. Good luck with that. You know what I mean? Like, good luck with that. You're gonna need it. There's not really a solution other than never forget you are in fact the victim. A little less because you're a white woman, so you know there's some murky territory there. But you know, ultimately, if you're a woman, like you're basically like your life, you know, you're basically a victim. Like you are. Just make sure you attend to other women who are more a victim than you, because that was another thing. They were like, I mean, you look like that, like then you're not really a woman, are you? Because like you don't suffer through a lot, like what? So like it's like the ignorance, like they talk so much about Latin America and like indigenous cultures. Okay, guys, you should know I grew up in a basically Latin American context, socially speaking. Girls who look like European models get bullied. That is what happens, and that's what happened to me actually. So to then get to London and Europe in general, where I felt honestly kind of queen of the world looks wise, and not let me enjoy that, thinking that that's always been my reality, and like let's not allow her to enjoy this because that's at the cost of my other bigger friend. So she's gorgeous, but shh. It's like, guys, I literally got bullied because I look like this. Like, it's the ignorance and like the audacity, you know, to just, yeah, I'm sure this is how it is. British white women, actually, yeah, basically just we're desperate to be on the side of the victim or to be the victim themselves. Sorry, like just, I like it still makes me mad. But anyway, that's what I found. So on the one hand, you know, don't complain about housing, shut up, take it. But then men and like everything identity related, they're like, I mean, that's gonna give you a lot of points with us, but also you are gonna have to be a victim forever. And I was like, I don't understand. Like, there's such a mismatch between what's making me suffer the most and what's making me hold on to something toxic or someone at all. In terms of feeling dependent, in terms of feeling weak, which was unstable, uncomfortable, unsafe housing, exploitative housing. That's what was putting me in that realm of instability and desperation, to be honest. More so than anything else, more so than my rationality, which, like, of course it's suffering, but it's not the kind of suffering where you are desperate in the first place and you feel unsafe in the first place, you know? Which is exactly how the housing situation made me feel. And so that never got brought up, but what was brought up was that, you know, because my countries were misogynistic or whatever, inherently, then, you know, it had to be my internalized misogyny, it had to be the misogyny of these, like, Spanish guy, whatever, instead of, you know, the fact that I was feeling desperate because I sensed it and I was already going through material hardship, you know? And so this view of, you know, one sort of virtuous area or identity versus one that is inherently sort of reactionary in their eyes, just turned out keeping me away from politics and keeping me away from the left, because this was the only left I knew. My family had done great things in the left, but precisely because of those same dynamics of basically canceling history, the future being cancelled, the present being about tonight and next week, but never a long-term project, and the lack of, again, what I always talk about on this channel, you know, the constant displacement, the lack of stable housing, jobs, relationships, political projects, the emptying out of working class institutions such as political parties, unions, the family, even some sort of practicing of religion, if you will. All of that was what was like actually leading me to encounter only this left, because that's the left that is unfortunately still flourishing. And you know, that's really tragic. That's really tragic, because if only someone had told me at that time, for instance, join a renters union, you know, instead of obsessing over my, you know, annoying, superficial, even misogynistic, I guess, maybe, comments about like that girl at that point, for instance. Which, by the way, I do think personal life and private life are inherently rational, and I think it's so like against your very nature to tell you that you have to systematically align with whichever woman is in the picture, even if on a instinctual level you are competing with her for the person that is the person that you actually love. Like, this is, I think it's a huge ask for women, like especially for a 20-year-old. It's kind of cruel. It's kind of cruel, honestly. Like, it's to me, that's not feminism. It's not. Feminism is something very different, such as, I don't know, healthcare, housing, etc. So just to go on, I wanna also tell another anecdote from later on at my master's, which that was the period of my life that I succumbed the most to this ideology, and you can see that in my earlier videos. I was really trying, because by then I was convinced something with the world is wrong, but because this was the only left I knew, I was like, they gotta be right, it's gotta be that, because there's nobody else is really here. I mean, that isn't, maybe, I don't know, Trump. Nobody else is really here telling me, okay, things are wrong because of this and this, you know? It was just, that was the whole picture that I had gotten at that time, unfortunately. So I kind of fell for it. I still felt a little weird about it, but like, you know, I really went into the identity politics, down the identity politics road. And so I go to this quote unquote safe space, which don't get me started on those. Anyway, I go to the safe space, spoiler, it didn't feel safe for a single second. I felt like I was like walking on eggshells throughout the entire thing. Like, it was miserable. So it was, both of the people in it were non-binary, which in itself shouldn't mean anything at all. That's precisely my point. Unfortunately, though, they did end up telling me, because I looked heterosexual, not even, like, I was like, yeah, I don't know that I'm heterosexual, really. They were like, yeah, but that's what you look like. And they also were like, yeah, but you are very generally normative. And like, they were struggling to tell me this in a way that was like politically correct, and it just looked so hard. Like, they just had a very hard time doing that, but that was basically their message. And that was in response to me telling them about my project, about, you know, telling the stories of a range of women. That was like my master's project. You can actually find it in my YouTube channel still. I did a series of videos. I brought together women and fictional characters, and like basically did the opposite of you know, making the political personal. I basically tried to make the point that like the problems that you have are totally related to a social-political context, not just to your like psychology, you know? And so I told them that, and I was seeking advice. I was like, how can I make this more inclusive, safer, whatever? They were basically like, given your identity, you shouldn't be doing this job. like this kind of project is not politics. Basically, they told me politics is not for you. You shouldn't be the protagonist. So why would you be in it? Great. I don't even know that that needs a comment. I mean, it's so bad, it's almost comical. But I remember living there, like, kind of mortified and just trying to convince myself that was fine and that was interesting, and really wasn't. And yeah, their whole advice was basically always prioritize people who have more intersecting oppressions than yourself. Of course, check your privilege. And then what happened? I went on YouTube and making use of the research skills and the most interesting pieces of academia I had managed to gather throughout those years. And also through my master, because of my masters, I had to research online media, digital media and digital left independent media. And that's how I found Jacobin. And I found the Jacobin show. I started following it down the line. This was even like after my master's. I kept, nourishing my political views on that. And that's when it really finally clicked. I realized through Jacobin, then down the line with academics like Catherine Liu, obviously, the amazing Bungacast podcast, Damage Magazine, Compact Magazine, people also like Ben Burgess, for instance, Michael Brooks, Jen Pan. I started really finally clicking. And I understood why when I said I love the Enlightenment, these people like cringed, because for them, within their from their postmodern perspective, grand narratives are to be rejected. The idea of man as rational, as acting on material interest, as by organizing and by using that rational part of ourselves, determining our own destiny, of using this earth for the betterment of our human species, and for like taking forth an epic project, an ambitious epic project of basically betterment of our conditions, so that we can be truly free, so that we can be truly equal, so that we can self-actualize, and be who we really are in the world, so that we can have real democracy, not just political democracy but economic democracy. All of these ideas fundamentally that are so based around Marxism and the working class as the subject that can organize to get better material conditions. All of this is completely counter to postmodernism, which is about identity. Yes, it's about the rejection not just of the working class as that specific revolutionary agentic subject, but also of the idea that there is any subject that would actually have to be the agent of change, of revolution. Basically, Chantal moved this idea of like your tiny sort of like hegemonic blogs, like these basically lobby groups, to me. And this idea of intersectionality, that being working class is yet another identity, not a class condition based in material reality. That class is an identity closely related to culture, and it's just like being a woman, or it's just like being gay, or it's just like being trans, like not being white. It's basically the same thing. It's one of many identity qualifiers, or identities, or oppressions that intersect you. And you know, it's not a special class apparently to them. And not only that, but focusing on class is to them inherently reactionary. And so, yeah, no wonder they hated the Enlightenment. No wonder they thought I was, basically reactionary. No wonder my humanist instincts, you know, when I said from day one, I am a feminist. I think that's really important. I just don't think focusing on gender as the main sort of thing, as my gender identity as the core sort of point of my ideology, that there's something off about that for me, because I was a humanist, because to me ultimately socialism and being a leftist, and I mean, forget about that, like my inherent like core belief is about us all being equal, and it's about ambitiously bettering our conditions, you know, and to me the way to do that is a Marxist socialist project. And you know, but to me that instinct of like, of course I'm a feminist, but you know, to me my personhood comes before my gender, right? Even the being more worried about housing than about, you know, some guy playing games with me. Like I was actually clever enough to understand a landlord had a lot more power over me than some random dude. And you know, I feel like the succumbing to it at some point very much has to do with, you know, with the censorship that is around these institutions. Like, let's face it, it's not a stereotype, it's true, guys. It is true, it's there, 100%. Like, I remember there was one conservative guy in my class at the time, at least that we knew, because he, you know, he was quite, quote unquote, brave about that. And he just went out and he openly, like, asked questions that were very conservative. And, like, that's the thing. Like, it's not like I identify with that either. So I was just like, yeah, well, I guess I'm completely alone here. So, you know, it was endlessly frustrating. And I just felt like I had to fit. I feel like my friendships depended on it, especially when you've moved into a new city. You're trying to have a social life. You're studying so much, having so little, like, free time. Of course you want to, like, fit in, you know? Even with my dissertation, I could so easily have linked that sense of, like, stasis, of lost futures to, yes, Mark Fisher, or, like, the end of history in general, you know? I loved it. I wish I could have been given different instructions as to what to investigate. And, you know, ultimately for me, the saddest part about this is, yes, I got there, but this prioritization of postmodern fields within academia, but especially the social zeitgeist in which that happened, I don't know which of the two comes first, to be honest. That's maybe a whole other video. But, you know, that instead of bringing me in to an to an extent pushed me away, because like yes, I thanks to that university I discovered a lot of brilliant academic material for sure, and not just academic like criticism, but also artistic pieces, absolutely. I don't know who I would be without all of that. But I also got pushed away. Because I was told my countries were so racist and so inherently reactionary, and so I was too, because I was a girly girl and like I liked boys, and I admitted to it. I was not afraid to admit, no, I am not over this. That for them made me weak. To me, it's the opposite, to be honest, but whatever. It didn't fit with the attempt of the very counterproductive attempt to try to therapize my private life whilst basically ignoring or making me feel guilty for complaining about my material hardships. And I want to end on a comment about a professor whom I loved. And in this class, he was apparently controversial. I have no idea why to this day, but they said he's controversial. But anyway, we were studying, I think it was Rancière, and in class he started with only two questions. Like he said nothing about the text yet. We just entered the class. He asked us two things to like put our hands up. So he says, "Are you in love?" And I remember putting my hand up, and the girl next to me, the one who then did the breakup anniversary party, she put her hand up too. After that, he said, "Are you afraid?" And I put my hand up, and my friend did not. And he said, "If you're not afraid, you're not in love." And I find that so interesting. I would love to go back and rethink that. At the time, I remember the conversation was with me and my friend, and her saying like, that is such a toxic idea. Love should be about being comfortable and like just be happy with the situation and being protected and just feeling like you are, being taken care of. And I remember like saying, yeah, like at best, love is a lot about care, and it's about being happy in a situation. But happiness is most certainly not all of it, and love, especially because that's the kind of love we were discussing, romantic love, is a lot about risk and discovery and, a lot of the times, frustration and sadness and being mad and feeling resentful and wronged and trying to erase all of that, because the only politics you're actually doing is about other people's private lives. That is so sad. I am disgusted at how the private sphere is being transformed into the entirety of politics, whilst the public sphere is emptied out, and the private sphere is made into the public. It's, it's you talking about your trauma to the entire internet, or, you being a better or worse political candidate because of the identities that like intersect you. Again, I've said this a million times, I will continue saying it. We are over-rationalizing our private lives and over-emotionalizing our capital P political lives. If there's any of that actually, at all. Anyway, this is it for today. This was totally unscripted, so I hope I didn't forget anything. Again, this is not about hating these people. It is about realizing political dynamics in these elite institutions, and why, in my opinion, they might keep a lot of potentially very radical people outside the left. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any more questions. I will be back here soon, I hope. Please like this video if you did. Please subscribe to support me. See you soon.